1985. Freddie Spencer had just done something no one had ever done before. He won both the 250cc and the 500cc World Championships in the same season. Not just a few races here and there. Both titles, the same body, the same human being, one season. The press called him a once-in-a-generation talent. American newspapers wrote that he was the new king of motorcycle racing. And honestly, looking at what he had just accomplished, they were not wrong. The whole paddock felt like it was witnessing something bigger than the sport itself. Like the rules had changed, and Freddie was the one who changed them. But I remember something different. After the final round that season, I saw Freddie in the garage. The crowd outside was still cheering his name. Freddie was sitting alone on a tire stack. He pulled off his gloves slowly. His hands moved slower than they should have. His eyes were down. There was no smile waiting for the cameras. Just silence. Just a young man sitting in a garage while the world outside celebrated what it thought was the beginning of something unstoppable. I had said it before, and I meant it. Freddie had talent nobody else had. That part was true. But that night, what I saw was not talent. What I saw was a 23-year-old body that had already been pushed further than any rider should be pushed in a single season. Freddie once said, "I always wanted to race everything." The whole world heard that and saw passion. I heard it, and something in me went quiet. After the double championship, Freddie was called superhuman. Everyone wanted more from him. Honda wanted more. The media wanted more. The fans wanted more. And Freddie never said no. He did not know how. People thought Freddie Spencer was becoming larger than motorcycle racing itself. What scared me was that Freddie had started believing it too. The sport kept asking Freddie Spencer to be a miracle. And Freddie never learned how to say no. That is what I saw before everyone else, and nobody listened. I remember one day during the 1985 season, Freddie had just finished the 250cc race. He had not even had water yet, had not even sat down. He walked straight across to the 500cc garage, changed his leathers, put on his helmet, and headed for pit lane. His crew was still setting up the bike. Freddie was already ready. I stood a few meters away and watched him walk past me, exhausted but still smiling. The smile of a man who did not know he was doing too much. Nobody around him said a word. On the bike, Freddie rode like no one I had ever seen, smooth beyond logic, speed without visible effort. Everything happened faster inside his head than it did for the rest of the grid. He did not ride like Gardner. He did not ride like Lawson. Freddie rode like the motorcycle was part of his body. Freddie said, "I loved racing motorcycles more than anything." And when you watched him ride, you believed every word of it. Every corner, every exit, every single lap. I will say it plainly, Freddie could do things on a motorcycle nobody understood. But what I also saw was this: he did not know how to choose his battles. He did not know when to save himself for the next race. Freddie said, "I wanted to ride as much as possible." For most riders, that is motivation. For Freddie, that was the speed at which he was burning himself down. The media called it the Fast Freddie phenomenon. American fans saw him as the successor to Kenny Roberts. But most riders wanted to become champions. Freddie wanted to become impossible. And the world loved him for it. That is when I started to see something dangerous. Freddie was no longer racing just to win races. He was racing to keep alive the myth of Freddie Spencer, to prove every single weekend that the miracle was real. And a myth is never allowed to lose. This is the part I need people to truly understand. After 1985, everything changed. Not on the track, around it. In that season, Freddie raced both the 250cc and 500cc classes. Think about what that means. Every Grand Prix weekend meant 2 qualifying sessions, 2 races, 2 completely different motorcycles, 2 separate crews, 2 different setups, then a flight across the world to do it all again the following weekend. Kialami to Assen, Assen to Spa, Spa to somewhere else. There was no off switch. The body never had enough time to recover before the next round began. Freddie said, I pushed myself very hard. That was the gentlest way anyone could describe what was happening to him. Honda needed Freddie to sell motorcycles. That was business. Sponsors needed his face on every poster, every magazine cover, every television advertisement. That was money. The media wrote that Freddie was the future of the sport. That headline appeared on magazine covers, on television broadcasts, in newspapers around the world. Every headline was another expectation, and every expectation was another reason Freddie could not stop, could not rest, could not say, I need a break. Freddie carried enormous pressure, but he carried it alone. Because when the whole world calls you the future, you are not allowed to say you are tired. So why did nobody listen? This is the question at the heart of everything, because Freddie was still winning. When a rider is still standing on the podium, nobody looks at the hands shaking inside the gloves. Nobody asks how many hours he slept the night before. Nobody counts how many times he squeezed and released his wrist between sessions. Nobody notices the way he held his water bottle a little differently than before. Success hides everything, and Freddie was full of success. So nobody asked the questions that needed asking. The dangerous thing about Freddie was that he could actually do the impossible, at least for a while. And because Freddie could do it, the whole world believed the price would never come. But I started to see something that frightened me more than any crash ever could. Freddie had begun to believe that his worth as a human being depended on impossible performance. As long as he was superhuman, he was Freddie. The day he became normal again, he would not just lose championships. He would lose himself. Many retrospectives written years later described Freddie as someone who burned too brightly. That is a beautiful way to say it. The truth is less beautiful. The whole sport kept pouring fuel on the fire and called it greatness. The whole world loved Freddie Spencer for proving that human limits could be ignored. I think I understood before most people that limits do not disappear, they just wait. Motorcycle racing destroys riders in its own way. Not always with a crash, sometimes with smaller things. Nerve damage in the hands, numbness that spreads through the fingers after every race, a wrist that no longer turns the full range. Nights lying awake because a dull pain running from the shoulder down to the elbow simply will not go away. Freddie said pain became part of racing. But pain is not a teammate. Pain is a bill, and the body always collects. Freddie started having problems with his hands, serious problems. He went through surgery, not once, multiple times. Each surgery meant recovery time that the racing calendar did not allow. He came back earlier than doctors advised. He came back to the grid when his fingers could not fully grip the brake lever. He came back because Freddie Spencer does not sit out races. That is what the world expected, and Freddie gave the world what it expected. Freddie rode through things most riders would stop for. The world called that courage. I looked at it and saw something else. I saw a man who could no longer tell the difference between being brave and being broken. In the paddock, if you stood close enough, you could see it. The way Freddie flexed his fingers after climbing off the bike, the way he shook his hands out like they had gone numb, the stiffness in his movements that was not there 2 seasons ago. To anyone watching from the outside, these were small things. But in motorcycle racing, small things at 300 kilometers per hour are the difference between life and death. Medical retrospectives later noted that Freddie's body began breaking down early, much earlier than a rider his age should have experienced. That was not bad luck. That was the direct consequence of a human being trying to live like a legend every single weekend while the body had already started saying no. Freddie said, I always believed I could keep going. I believe he meant it. But belief does not fix nerve damage. Belief does not rebuild a hand that has been through 3 surgeries. The hardest thing for Freddie was not losing speed. It was accepting that he could no longer be the miracle everybody expected. The sport kept celebrating what Freddie could do. Nobody stopped to ask what it was costing him. And when the cost finally showed, people did not say we were wrong. They said Freddie was finished, as if it was his fault. There was no giant crash, no dramatic death, no final lap catastrophe that the cameras caught for the world to replay. That is what makes this story hurt more than any accident on a racetrack. Freddie Spencer simply disappeared too early, too quietly. One day he was the greatest rider on earth. The next, he was a name people spoke about in the past tense. Everyone thought he would come back. The press wrote about when Freddie would return, not if. Season after season, people waited. But season after season, the name Freddie Spencer appeared less and less on the starting grid. His body never fully recovered. The pressure never went away. And the myth was too heavy for one human being to carry forever. Here's the saddest part. Freddie actually did the impossible. He proved it on the track in front of the whole world. And that is exactly why nobody listened to me. Because Freddie's success made the whole world believe that human limits could be beaten permanently, that what he was doing could go on and on without consequence. But limits do not get beaten. They wait, and they always collect. Freddie Spencer did not fail because he dreamed too big. Freddie disappeared because the whole sport kept asking him to be superhuman, and Freddie loved racing too much to refuse. Sometimes I watch old footage. Freddie smooth on corner exit. A lean angle no other rider would dare attempt. The throttle opening so early it made no sense. The sound of the crowd screaming his name. Then the camera cuts back to the garage. Young Freddie sitting there, smiling, exhausted, alone. And I think about all the things I saw that nobody wanted to hear. I am not a prophet. I never was. I am just a rider who raced long enough in this world to understand one thing. When an entire sport turns a human being into a legend, nobody asks the legend if he wants to rest. Nobody checks if the legend is still a person underneath. They just keep asking for more until one day, quietly, the legend is gone. And then everybody wonders what happened. For a few years, Freddie Spencer made the impossible look normal. I think that was the most dangerous thing of all.